Max. Dear Diary, is this how this stuff works? Wait, no, that's something else. This is more of a voiceover thing. Audience? I laugh as I entered the school. It was a strange place, but I've become well acquainted with it now. Hey, Maxie, someone said to me. I looked to my side to see that girl again, the one who was, file check, dating Tyler, Vienna. Hi, I replied, slowing so she could walk with me because it seemed that's what she was trying to do. I felt something moving around in the pit of my stomach. It was a new emotion. It was a weird one. I couldn't quite put my name on it. Happy? Sad? No. No, it began with a P. Peachy? Nope. It was stronger than that. Oh, I know what it is. Protective. I felt protective of Vienna. V had been so kind to me the past week and a bit. I didn't want anything to hurt her. So, what did you and Tyler do last night? V asked excitedly. I felt my cheeks flush. Blushing was a weird sensation. In my species, our dots on our cheek change from black to blue when we blush. Nothing much, I said, a casual term I learned from Marco only yesterday. V pouted, hooking her arm around mine. I had to rack my database to check what that meant, and from what I knew, it seemed fine. She wasn't coming on to me. Come on, give me the details, she pleaded. I opened my mouth to tell Vienna everything when Tyler came around the corner of the hallway with Marco. Marco waved and cried out to us, and V did it back. But Tyler's eyes caught mine, and then we both grinned. I licked my lips, feeling them tingle in longing to be against his again. When we reached them, Tyler grabbed V and kissed her. I looked away, feeling jealous, and smiled to Marco. Did you watch the game last night? He asked me excitedly. No, I replied, glancing over at the couple. I strained my ears to hear them over the noisy, busy hallway with the chatting students that were rushing back and forth. Well, V asked him. We kissed, Tyler replied shyly. V screamed, and a few people turned to look. OMG! So cute. Tell me everything. V giggled. I frowned and looked right at her. The girl was smiling and bouncing on the spot. What? From the experience I've gotten from watching movies and reading books, Vienna was not supposed to be reacting like that. Like I was something bad for him, but he wanted it anyway. He smiled back. All right, V grumbled. But admit it, you're at least bisexual. She ended it with a laugh, and Tyler shook his head. Fine, I'll admit it. I'm bisexual. He gave in. V got on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek. Good boy, she teased and came back over to us. Max? Marco asked me. I snapped back and looked at the boy who'd been talking to me, and I'd been paying no attention to. Sorry, what? I asked. He laughed and patted my shoulder. Don't worry, Tyler isn't into football either, he said, and then went into the form room, which was now open. Bye, guys, V chuckled, and then skipped off to her own class, leaving me and Tyler alone in a now empty hallway. I looked him over. Damn, he looked good today in dark green jeans and a black t-shirt with a picture of an alien on it. The typical alien, not me alien. Like what you see? Tyler asked me, smirking. I nodded, biting my lip. I really did like what I saw. The urge to jump on him right here and now had my skin crawling, but I held it back. He scratched his neck and took a step away from the classroom door, so he was out of sight of the people inside looking at us. About last night, he started, and I wasn't sure what he was going to say. It could be either good or bad. Good, I do like you, or bad, I'm with V, so this can't happen. To stop Tyler from saying it and potentially crushing my hopes, I shoved him up against a locker and crashed my lips onto his. Tyler didn't hesitate to kiss me back, and it was the best feeling in the world. I was so hungry for him. I'd never felt this way about anyone in my entire life, not back on my home planet, nor on any others. What was it about him that had me acting this way? Humans are so weird. Tyler put his hand on my right hip under my shirt, and I grinned against his lips. About last night, I mused, daring him to say no to me now. Tyler chuckled and pushed me away, just as the bell went to begin form time. Never mind, he smirked and went inside the room. I grinned smugly and walked in after him, taking a seat next to him and Marco. Everything was fine now, but it wasn't going to stay like this. I killed the Martians. I hid their ship on the ocean floor. I repaired the damage they created and removed any trace that they were here, apart from Tyler's memories. But that didn't matter when the crew of the ship failed to return home. They'd send out a larger search party. They'd know it was me again, and they'd come looking. Being Mars's most wanted wouldn't exactly go down too well. But was it selfish of me to not leave? Was it selfish of me to stay here on Earth to be beside Tyler? The answer is yes. But do I care? No, not really. So long as they don't mess with me and the people I've come to care about. Lunchtime. It's my favorite part of this whole school thing, apart from history. I liked learning about Earth things. It was lunchtime right now, and I was sitting with my new group, as they called it. Vienna was sitting next to Marco, opposite Tyler and me. That other guy didn't sit with us much since the party. I wonder if he remembered anything. But that's impossible. My powers are too strong. There's a reason I created a scapegoat in Tyler's memories. So, are you going to tell me now? V asked, Tyler grinning. She winked at me, and I smiled wider. Tyler blushed and looked at a blade of grass he was holding. I wonder what he found so fascinating about it. Probably the same as me, the way the sunlight made it transparent. I liked that. It was a weird little earth quirk. Well, Tyler said, but left his sentence open. He glanced sideways at me and smiled. I chuckled and laid back on the grass, hands behind my head, looking up at the blue sky. It was the way that guy, Gunner, had sat the first time we met. It was actually pretty comfy. Blue sky. Huh. Now that was something to laugh about. Come on, goddammit. Spill before I have to cut you open and read your intestines like the old witches used to do. V barked. Marco choked on his orange juice and spat it out everywhere. Gross, he said to V, screwing his nose up. I'll tell you, I piped up, reaching out and grabbed Tyler's hand. I yanked him down on top of me and held him against my chest. It went something like this, I said, hooking a hand behind Tyler's head and pulling his face to mine. I held my lips just away from his, only a feather's touch, and Tyler's eyes went wide in shock. Oh my God, V breathed, rocking forward onto her knees to get a better look. Marco's face paled mid-chew on his sandwich. I looked right into Tyler's eyes, and the rest of the world vanished. It was just him and me. I want you. I fed into his mind. His eyes went wider. His bottom lip began to tremble, and that's when I pushed him back. It wasn't my turn. I made the first two moves. He made the third. I made the fourth this morning, and now it was his turn again. Tyler straddled my waist, hands on my chest, still staring down at me stunned. Your move. Don't stop, V whispered, making me crack up. You've got an audience again, Marco grumbled, looking away from us. Reality sunk back in, and I looked around. The other students closest to us were looking and whispering. Tyler didn't even seem to notice. He was still staring at my face. Bottom lip dropped slightly open. I bit my lip. I wanted him so badly. I wanted him to know it. I wasn't afraid he'd reject me, because I knew he wouldn't. I was going to make him mine, no matter what. Tyler took a deep breath, and then he leaned forward over me and pressed his lips to mine. It wasn't an animated kiss, but it was sweet and simple. V squealed so loud my ears started to ring, but I didn't stop. I want you too. I heard Tyler think back. I was still in his mind to hear it, and I wrapped my arms around him. Good, I thought. Tyler. I didn't really know what to make of this whole situation. I had a girlfriend, and now I kind of had a boyfriend too, and my girlfriend was the one who set us up, and she liked it. I'm not exactly sure what that meant, but I decided this morning, after Max had kissed me before form, that I was just going to go with it and see how it plays out. I did feel a little guilty towards V, but when I tried to tell her in math how I felt, she shut me down and said that if I didn't get with Max, she'd break up with me. So I assumed that meant she was okay with it. Right now, I was sitting in the back of English against the wall on the floor with my small study group. We'd been assigned a group essay thing on To Kill a Mockingbird. If you want my opinion, they need to teach kids in school something more modern that they can relate to. I mean, sure, I guess that Mockingbird book is probably really good if you're into that kind of thing, but honestly, I just don't get it. Maybe if segregation and slavery were still current issues, I'd understand, but come on, people, get with the program. It's 2012 for crying out loud. I'm friends slash boyfriends with a freaking alien, for God's sake. I'll have to remember to bring this up with Neil tonight over dinner or something. Minus the alien being my boyfriend part, of course. I was sitting up against the wall at the back of the room, leaning on my knees to write. Vienna was stretched out on her stomach in front of me, and Marco was to my right, sitting sideways and leaning on his arm. Gunnar was in our group too, sitting on my left, but he wasn't speaking or doing anything. "Where's Max?" Marco asked me pointedly. I shrugged. "How should I know?" I retorted as if I was supposed to know his every whereabout and going on, though it was strange that Max had missed nearly the entire lesson. The classroom door opened, and then Max walked in, followed by my uncle. The teacher rose and went over to them, chatting with my uncle while Max came over to us. "Hey," he said to our small group, coming and sitting beside me. He sat down so close to me, I was practically sitting on top of him. The warmth that came from him now ran down my entire side wherever he was touching me. Vienna wiggled her eyebrows at me, and I sighed. "Hey," I replied to my whatever he was. "Hello, cutie," Vienna cooed. Max laughed, and Marco rolled his eyes. Actually, Marco was pretty narky lately. What was with him? I'll ask him later. "So, what are we doing?" Max asked, friendly, looking at my work on my legs. "To Kill a Mockingbird," I groaned, throwing my pen into V's lap so I didn't have to write anymore. Yuck, I hate writing. I don't understand how people can like it. Putting emotions and feelings on display for the world to see? No thanks. "I don't get it," Max said simply. I smirked. I knew he didn't know it. "I'll read it to you," V offered, grabbing one of the copies from the pile in the middle of our circle and opening it up. She began to read, but I wasn't sure how much Max was listening, because he was running his hand up and down my thigh, and I liked it. Then the bell went to finish class and signaled the end of school. Yes, it was finally over. But I was kind of a little sad, too. It meant I wouldn't get to see Max again until tomorrow morning. Oh, man. And V and my friends, too, of course. We as a group made our way out of the school and onto the streets. Marco got a lift with Vienna, so they said goodbye and left. Gunnar just walked away without saying anything, and then I turned to Max to say goodbye. "Go," I started, but Max smirked and grabbed my hand, pulling me in the direction of my uncle's apartment. "What are you—" I started, but he looked at me and smiled, and I knew. He was going to walk me home. I stopped in my tracks and ripped my hand out of his. I'd never felt my manhood take such a hit as I had right then, not even when I was kissing another guy. "You're not walking me home like some chick," I barked at him. Max, who was slightly taller than me, a fact I somehow never seemed to be able to forget, kept laughing. "I sure am," he chuckled and grabbed my hand again, tugging me further away from the school. "You're sure not," I grumbled, but he was stronger than me and wouldn't let go. Now I felt even more of a girl. He was taller, stronger, better looking. Is this how all girls feel around sexy guys? Christ, what would Vienna say if she knew I just called Max sexy? I'd never hear the end of it. "You guys are so cute together. You make such a great couple. You two have to get married and have lots of babies." Those were her current 3 favorite comments I'd had to endure since lunch. "Max," I groaned, drooping to make myself heavier and harder to pull along. Childish, I know, but you're talking to a guy who reads comic books and gets up early on Sundays to watch cartoons. "Tyler," Max replied mockingly. I pouted and sat down on the pavement, crossing my legs. Max stopped and laughed, sitting down cross-legged opposite me so our knees touched, still holding my hand. "I'll carry you," he warned me, and I believed him, so I quickly jumped to my feet to save myself further embarrassment. "Hey, fags!" a deep voice called to us, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I gulped as Max looked over my shoulder. "Yeah, you," said another. "You think it's okay to walk around displaying that kind of disgusting behavior and get away with it?" Oh, crap. When I got with Max, I'd forgotten about the whole backlash thing. Max half smiled at me, and my heart fluttered a little. "Did you hear me, queer?" The first one hissed. I slowly turned and looked at the 2 guys coming towards us. They were from the AFL team at school. Two big, broad boneheads who were kind of stereotypically homophobes. These were the guys who used to beat me up in primary school, before the girls started sticking up for me and Marco. I guess now that it looked like I was gay, the girls weren't so protective of me. Damn. Max stepped forward and wrapped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What are you doing?" I breathed to him, a shiver creeping up my spine. "I can take him, remember?" Max chuckled into my ear. It tickled. Oh, yeah. I forgot Max was an alien for a second. Suddenly, I wasn't so scared anymore. One of the guys crinkled his nose at our PDF. "You freak," and the first guy said, lunging for us. But that was about as far as he got before Max was suddenly in front of me, grabbing the guy by the throat and lifting him off the ground. The guy's feet kicked out underneath him, trying to find the ground. "I don't take kindly to ignorance," Max purred. My eyes landed on the other guy, who was still standing there watching. There was something off about him, something that I couldn't quite place. Then I knew what it was. The guy's skin peeled off of him like a banana, only to be replaced by shiny black flesh oozing out. It was the same creature I'd seen that time at Gunner's. "Max!" I cried, making Max look too. Then the guy he was holding up started to change too, and I knew we were in trouble. "Get back, now!" Max ordered me, reaching into the back pocket of his pants. He pulled out a strange kind of weapon and got it ready. I rushed backwards, but tripped over the curb and fell back onto the street. I heard the screeching of tires and turned my head sideways to see the front of a car rearing to a halt just centimeters away from my face. There were two flashes of light from where Max was, and then suddenly he was standing there alone with two piles of screaming black goo. I got back to my feet and looked at the old woman in the car. She looked like she was going to have a heart attack. I ran to Max and grabbed his arm, turning him around to face me. My jaw dropped, and I stumbled back when my eyes landed on his. They were completely black and swirling like... It gave me a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach, like I was going to be sick. Max shook his head, and his eyes were back to normal. He grabbed my arms to stop me falling again. "Sorry," he said to me. "That wasn't meant for you." I nodded. I'd read something about that kind of black eye thing power in my alien encyclopedia. But it was a power common in the bad aliens. Tyler. "Chinese?" Neil asked me, standing at the kitchen bench flipping through takeaway menus he'd gotten in the post. I was sitting on the couch watching a repeat of Futurama. Chinese, Max, kissing. I reached up and touched my lips with my fingers, fingering my bottom lip. Max's eyes, they were supposed to glow. They weren't supposed to be black and glossy like that. He had lizard eyes. I groaned and slumped backwards on the couch, slipping down. It's not fair. Why did he have to be one of the bad guys? He was hot, a great kisser, and there was just something about him. I couldn't stop thinking about him. I mean, I know I hardly knew him, and he's an alien, but... So, no to Chinese then? Neil laughed from over in the kitchen. I couldn't see him anymore from this sloped angle, but I heard the shuffling of pamphlets on the countertop. "It's not that," I sighed, rubbing my face with my hands to try and clear my mind. "Sorry," Max said. "That wasn't meant for you." I stared at him, wondering what it'd been about. The eyes weren't meant for me. They were meant to scare off the aliens. But he killed them before, and his eyes hadn't done that. Was it really okay? "Your eyes," I mumbled, trying to pull away from him. He let go of me, like he understood, but he didn't try to explain himself. Then he said goodbye and left, not even trying to walk me home again. And now I was left with a sick feeling swirling around in my stomach. "How about pizza? I can order your favorite. Chicken and pineapple on barbecue sauce," Neil offered. He knew something was up, but he didn't want to address it. Neil was great like that, and I was glad I was here with him rather than at home. Neil got when I didn't want to talk about things and left me alone. My parents would have called a family meeting and drilled me for details. "Sounds great," I sighed, and leaned forward over my knees. I could feel the tension coming from Neil. He wanted to ask me what was up, but was fighting the urge not to say anything. In the end, he called for pizza and then sat on the couch beside me. Without saying a word, he handed me his half-drunken, still-cold beer and folded his arms over his chest. I looked at the cool drink, smelt it, then took a swig. I wasn't ever going to tell you this, my uncle started. The way he said it wasn't uncomfortable, but reluctant. I asked, taking another long mouthful of beer. I've heard a few rumors going around school, Neil continued. I had a feeling I knew where this was going. Neil had heard about me and Max. I heard you and the new kid are getting along pretty well. Yup, I was right. You know, it was funny. I hadn't even thought about telling my family yet. Probably because it was a new and complicated matter. Not just because I was now bisexual, dating both a guy and a girl, and that my boyfriend was an alien, but because of the whole was he a bad guy thing. I'm just going to get to the point, Neil sighed and turned to look at me. Tyler, I'm gay. My jaw dropped, and I gawked at my uncle. You what? I gasped, and Neil laughed awkwardly. Your parents know, but we weren't going to tell you in case it changed things in our relationship. I didn't want you to feel uncomfortable around me, having a gay uncle. Neil blushed a little and looked away from me to the TV, where Bender was doing some sort of dance. Dude, I growled, standing up. How could it change things? You're my uncle. I'm not some homophobe or something. You know how cuddly I am with Marco? How could I be? Neil laughed and kicked me in the shin, making me grab my leg and sit back down. Okay, but now that you're whatever, it might make things uncomfortable if it gets out. Not many people know I'm gay, and I'd like to keep it that way. The churches would be riding my ass if they found out. They'd call me a pedophile and a child molester, or whatever it'll take to get me fired. A gay man working with children? I've got enough on my plate already. Neil laughed at the end, but I could sense the stress behind it. I hadn't realized being gay was such a hard thing for people. I'd always just sort of accepted it as an everyday thing. I mean, I liked cuddling with Marco, and V was always going on about something cute she'd read online. It just seemed normal. Wasn't it? I'd heard about the backlash and gay bashing, but was it really this serious? People really got heated over something like that? That's so stupid. Anyway, the guy who I was with the day you met Max, remember? Neil went on, dragging me from my thoughts. I nodded. I remembered. He's my boyfriend. I tossed my head back and laughed, feeling a little of my stress easing. It was good to have someone to talk to, even though I wasn't saying much back. It's funny. Before this, I'd always wished my life was like a science fiction movie. And now, it was. So, it's okay you're into guys, Neil said, elbowing me. I screwed my face up at him. I'm not into guys. I'm just into one guy. I mumbled shyly, then got up and rubbed my hands on my pants because they were sweaty. When's that pizza coming? I added, wanting to change the subject. I went to the apartment door and looked out the people in the empty hall. I stumbled back just as the door knocked. Is it here? Neil asked, looking over. I'd handed him back his beer, and he finished it. I shook my head and opened the door. Can we talk? Max asked me. He wasn't smiling. I looked over my shoulder to Neil, who nodded and got up. You can talk in your room, and close the door. I don't want to hear what's going on, my uncle said, and then wandered into the kitchen. I nodded to Max, and he came in, waving to my uncle before going off to my room. I closed the front door and followed him, going into my room and closing that door too. What's up? I asked, placing my hands in my pockets. Max had his back to me, standing in the middle of my room, looking at the posters I'd put up. If I was staying here, I might as well make myself comfortable. Max looked down at the mattress on the floor and then turned around to look at me. You know what my eyes did, don't you? Max said. It wasn't a question, but I felt the need to answer it. I walked past Max and sat down on my bed. I think so, I muttered, thinking about my book. I'd looked it up when I got home. Black Eye, the power to fill your enemy with fear. It was a power common on Mars, which had me worried because Max refused to tell me where he was from. And Mars was the planet of war. Had Max been lying to me? I know what you're thinking. Max smirked, coming and sitting down beside me. He sat close so that our shoulders were almost brushing. I felt better feeling him there. Suddenly, I was being thrown back down on my bed, and Max was pinning me there. I looked up at him and frowned. It's classified. I'm not allowed to tell you anything, Max said, looking right into my eyes with a dead serious glare that made my skin crawl. I struggled against him, trying to break free, but of course he was stronger than me. So you're just going to have to trust me, he added, and lowered his face down to mine. He brushed his lips slightly over mine, and my worries vanished. I didn't care if he could hurt me, or if I could get in trouble by being with him. Danger at every corner, none of that mattered because right now I just wanted him. I tipped my head up and pressed my lips to his, but when I tried to kiss him properly, Max pulled back and looked down at me with hard eyes. I can't put you in danger again. Being with me, they'll come after you to get to me. You won't ever be safe, he said. I shook my head. I don't care, I said, but he shook his head. He knew as well as I did. I'd probably come to regret saying that later. I do. If anything happened to you. He trailed off, looking away from me to my poster of a Dalek from Doctor Who. Why do you like me? I asked him, tilting my head to the side. He looked down at me and laughed. I was glad to see his smile returning. The first time I met you was on the Oval in the Storm, and you were like, what's the human term? My knight in shining armor? Max paused to laugh. You came out to help me, even though you had no idea who I was or why. I was dying from my injuries from the crash, and your kiss re-energized me back to life. It was my turn to laugh now. That is the most stupidest thing I've ever heard, I told him, but he shrugged. You saved my life, so I wanted to repay you. I watched you in class, and I was intrigued, so I enrolled at school and decided to stay here for a while. But the more I saw you, the more I wanted to see you. Maybe it's because you're an idiot, Max teased. I raised my eyebrows. The alien has learnt humor, I chuckled. He nodded and then tried to pull back, but I grabbed his wrist and lifted them above my head, making him fall down against me. Max laughed and I grinned. So, taking him off guard works then. Tyler, Max warned. I knew he was refusing to kiss me because of the danger I was in, but he just didn't understand. I liked it when he said my name. Max. I purred, his face so close to mine. He looked into my eyes and closed his mouth. I knew what he was thinking. He wanted me just as much as I wanted him. Do it, I said to him in my mind. He bit his lip, and that only made me want him more. Because he was laying over me, he was using his legs to support himself, and one of his legs was between mine. His knee was near my crotch. No, Max said firmly. I smirked and shuffled so that my head was higher, closer. I know you want to. So? Okay, don't. Makes no difference to me. Liar. Then do it. Tyler! Max! Max closed his eyes so he wasn't looking into mine anymore, and I felt the connection break. He was closing his mental thoughts off to me, or whatever that was. There was a knock on my bedroom door. Pizza's here. Is Max staying for dinner? Neil asked through the door. No, thanks anyway, Mr. Montgomery, Max called to my uncle through the door. I raised my eyebrows as Max pulled his arms out of my grip with too much ease and sat up, rolling off me and the mattress, then stood up. Don't go! I panicked, sitting up as Max went to my bedroom door. He stopped, hand on the doorknob, and turned to look at me. He didn't say anything. His eyes just raked over my body, and I saw his face soften. Then he rushed over to me, shoved me down, and smashed his lips to mine. I wrapped my arms around him and kissed him back, and as he kissed me, I felt my energy level rising. I'm gonna go, Max breathed between my lips. I pulled back and glared at him. I told you not to, I growled, but Max shook his head. That's not what I meant. I mean I'm going back to my home planet. It's safer this way, he explained, and my heart sank. About your eyes, I inquired, to get off the topic of Max going. I stole it, Max explained without holding back. The black eye, I stole it from the Martians. It's one of the reasons I'm enemy number one to them. And the others? I asked hopefully. Max laughed and shuffled over my lap. Not today, kid, he chuckled, hugging me. Kid? I scoffed, mock offended. Yeah, kid. I'm 43 years old, Max stated. Liar, I barked. Then I remembered all those sappy popular romances out there at the moment, the ones with the vampires and werewolves and stuff. But those had been over exaggerated, something like 100 years and stuff. My alien was only 43. There's one more thing I want to tell you before I let you go and have dinner. Max spoke softly, so no one could overhear. I didn't reply so that I could hear him better. Max is just a name I picked up to blend in on Earth. My real name is... Guys, food, getting cold, Neil called through the door, practically breaking it down. I groaned. Later, Max said, then kissed me goodbye and left. A few minutes later, I heard the front door slam shut